it's very rare that I talk about like how far I've come and the things that I've accomplished and the things that I've learned. But I'm slowly trying to learn to open up and share myself, because you can't keep holding all this stuff in, just telling yourself the story. Like, you have to release it in order to heal. So as a part of healing, I am learning to speak. So with that being said, when I graduated high school in 2009, I didn't really know like what I wanted to do. I knew since a child that I just wanted to make people smile. Like, I knew that without a shadow of a doubt. But as far as careers that they say you need to be successful, your girl didn't have no plan. I just wanted to be out here in these streets, you know? So when I graduated high school, of course, I was expected to go to college. Either go to college or to get a job. And I don't like working for people. Even before I started working for people, before I got my first job, I realized that I didn't like working for people, because everybody else was getting a job at 15 and I was babysitting and doing hair. Getting a job was the furthest thing from my mind. So I applied to college, and I only applied to the Savannah State University. One, because I was born in Savannah and I missed being home, and I felt like I missed a large part of who I was because I didn't grow up in Savannah. And two, because I didn't really have a good relationship with my dad growing up. So I was like, well, hell, if I come to Savannah, then that's a perfect opportunity. I get my education and I can work on my relationship with him. So I apply to Savannah State and I get accepted, and I come to Savannah in 2010. And school starts January. And it's like, from the time that school started, it was just like a ripple effect of things. So my great-grandmother passed, my granddad passed, and then my uncle passed. And although I was really kind of close to my granddad, my uncle's death kind of hit a little bit harder, because he loved my peach cobbler, and the day before he passed, he begged me to make the peach cobbler, and I told him no. Like, my grandma was telling him no, and then finally she broke, and she was like, go ahead and make him the peach cobbler. So I make the peach cobbler for him, and I go back on campus. At the time, I'm living on campus. I go back on campus, and the next day I find out that he passes. So for a long time, it was like really hard for me to even think about him or to accept that I gave him a gift that he wanted before he passed. I was kind of beating myself up for it. So it was really hard to deal with his death. But the hardest part about me starting college was when my mom found out that she had cancer. And it was really hard for me because my mom and I didn't have a really good relationship growing up. Like, when I say just alike, argue each other down, we argued a lot. So when I got to college, and I guess that space got in between us, our relationship improved. We talked a lot more. So when she found out she had cancer, for me, it was kind of like, dang, I just got my best friend and I might lose her. So she finds out that she has cancer or whatever, and my immediate thought is to drop out of school, drop out of college, and go back to Macon to help her take care of my two younger sisters. And she tells me that she wants me to stay in school or whatever, that school is more important. So stay at school, push through or whatever. Now, in the midst of me dealing with all of this family stuff, I'm starting to date. I'm like, and this is my first relationship ever. Like, first, yeah, just legitimately first relationship, because I never really talked to anybody in high school. And then once I met my ex-boyfriend, it was like, okay, I'm still trying to learn this love thing. We were together for like 6 years, but he was able to talk to other people, and I was still consistent trying to be with him. Of course, I was still trying to, like, okay, honor myself, because you deserve love too, and I tried to talk to other people, but I always ended up coming back to him or whatever, or we always seem to end up coming back to each other. So while I'm dealing with all of this stuff with my with my family, I'm dealing with all of this stuff in this relationship that's not really a relationship. So I'm going through all of this emotional and mental frustration or turmoil, whatever you want to coin the term as. And I realized that from childhood to now, like, I've created this persona of the person that I needed to be, because I got bullied so much as a child that when I got to college, I was like, you know what, I'm not finna deal with none of this shit. I'm finna let people know off rip who I am, so they don't have to try to wonder and try to cross me. So while I'm in school, one of my best friends, she randomly comes up to me one day and she's like, you know, somebody asked me, why am I your friend? Because you're a bitch. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Because I thought that I was like the most down to earth, real chill, loving, supportive. So this was like a ton of bricks to me. Like, where is this stuff coming from? So after she tells me that, like, I start like analyzing myself, but I don't take it too serious or whatever. I just start like paying more attention to how I show up in spaces. And I realized that I didn't treat people well because I didn't treat myself well. I didn't know how to love myself, so therefore it was showing up in my other relationships. So crazy. I'm still learning to grasp my mind around this, and that's probably like 2012, 2013 or whatever. 2014, my mom passes, and it's like the hardest hit that I've ever took. Like, I can't even explain how tough it was for me to deal with that loss, because I don't think I still dealt with it, because I had to handle all of the paperwork and stuff like that. So I never got a chance to sit in my emotions. So, like I said, 2014, my mom passes, and it's the hardest loss that I've taken. Right after she passes, I have to do all the paperwork, and then maybe a week or a couple of days after her memorial service, I have to go right back to school. So I go back to school, and I'm not in the mental space at all. Truthfully, I have no idea how I managed to finish that school, that term, because I was not present at all. At all. Mentally, I wasn't there. Physically, I showed up to class. I tried to do the work. I tried to go to my labs. I tried to be a good friend, but I was not there. So I'm dealing with all of this stuff, 2014, 2015, and I'm like, I just need to graduate. I'm tired of being here. I need to graduate. And the president at the university, she always, at every convocation, at every graduation, whatever, she always made it a point to say, if you don't graduate in 4 years or less, then basically you're a failure. I'm paraphrasing, but that's how it sounds when you hear it all the time and you're one of those ones that's struggling to get out. She was always like, I commend the students for graduating in 4 years or less, blah, 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 this and this. So on top of all of the other things that I was carrying, that was something else that I started to let bring me down emotionally. So I'm frustrated because I got all of this stuff going on. I can't really talk to my mom. When stuff go on in financial aid, I call my mama. When stuff go on with my friends, I call my mama. When something went on in my relationship, I call my mom. So I didn't really have that line of communication anymore. I still was vocal, talking to my friends and showing up and being present, but I was not showing up completely. I was partially there. So it's 2015, like I said, and time is slowly winding down. I'm getting ready to graduate, and I'm down to one last class, and the last class that I got to take was early childhood and development. I learned so much about myself and trauma that I didn't even realize that I was dealing with, and it explained a whole lot about myself. It explained why I try not to take up too much space. It explained why I was a people pleaser. It explained why I would rather see other people happy, because their happiness meant that they would be at peace, and nothing I did affected them, if that makes sense. So I'm taking this class, and it's like an eye-opener, right? It exposes me in ways that I didn't even know. So by this time it's 2016, and I'm getting ready to graduate. The proudest, if you can be proud of yourself for struggling through something, me graduating college was definitely me being proud of struggling through something, because your girl struggled, and I know we all have stories and we all have to share those stories, but your girl struggled, man. So I graduated in 2016, and of course they're like, oh, you got to get a good paying job. You got a degree, you got to get a real good paying job. You got to get insurance. You got to do this, and this. I'm like, okay. So I'm searching, trying to find a job. Nobody's hiring. And I'm like, I worked so hard to get a bachelor's, and nobody wants to hire me. So I finally get this interview with Savannah State Police Department, and it wasn't the ideal position that I wanted, but I saw it as a stepping stone to me getting to the actual position that I wanted. So I started working for the police department, and another me not taking time for myself, me not showing up for myself. I get this new revelation that I give entirely too much of myself, and I never make time and space for myself. I never give myself the adequate amount of sleep. I never, I show up so quick and so easily for other people, but it's so hard for me to do the same. So while I'm at the police department, I'm working 12-hour shifts, just working hard, paying bills at a house that I was never at, and none of this stuff made sense to me. None of that shit makes sense. For you to work so hard and not even get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, to not even be able to travel, or when you tell your supervisor or your boss or whatever that you're not going to be able to make it in, or that you're sick, and they catch an attitude like I'm not a human or something. So it really taught me that you give a lot. When do you sacrifice and say no? And when do you say, okay, I'm going to stand up for me because I deserve it. I need this time to rest. Yes, I need to come to work, but I haven't been able to sleep in the past couple of days. I need this time. So I was like, damn, man, I have to find something that gives me the time and the freedom that I need in order for me to enjoy life. Or at least that's what I thought that I was about to get. So I started back applying, and for years, 4 years, my grandma used to tell me, oh my gosh, you look like a teacher. You should be a teacher. You should go ahead and be a teacher, blah, 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 this. And I swore on my life that I would never become a teacher. I'm not teaching nobody kids. That was my favorite line. I'm not about to teach nobody kids because I'm not about to deal with nobody parents, blah, 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 this. This is talking big shit. So I'm tired of working at the police department, and I started applying for jobs again. And I applied for the board. But I didn't really get any, I didn't get any hits. So I started subbing. Now, mind you, subbing is totally different from teaching. Totally different. Let me go ahead and let y'all understand that now. So I'm subbing, and I'm like, dang, it's really not that bad. I kind of made a couple relationships with the kids. Like, you don't have consistent students that you see because you get to pick and choose which, schools you want to go to. But it taught me a whole lot about, being in that workspace, right? So after subbing, I finally get a interview for an elementary school, and the position is for SPED. I didn't know this when I applied for it. I was just ready for a job. But when I got to the interview and they told me that it was for SPED, immediately I was like, oh my God, am I up for this? Am I sure this is what I'm supposed to be doing? Because growing up, when we were in school, what we were taught SPED was, or special education was, is that mental or physically disabled students, right? So I didn't know if I was able to be a caregiver. But what I learned is when I started working there, most of my kids were EBD, emotional development disorder. So I'm watching these children, and they don't know how to manage their emotions. They don't know how to diffuse situations on their own. They have problems with changing schedules or something like that. It's not small stuff, but it's small stuff on a scale for what I thought that special education was going to be. So when I started paying more attention to my students and paying attention to their parents, I realized that we're all just children that were never taught how to deal with our emotions. We were never taught how to express ourselves without getting frustrated, without getting angry, without getting physical. And these are the things that we are teaching our children. When I tell you that was an eye-opener, and it really changed my perspective about everybody that I've dealt with. Even in passing, it makes me reconsider judging. So, like I said, I started this journey in 2016, but I don't think I officially started or understanding what the journey was until 2018, when I started working with my students. And what I loved about teaching is something that I wasn't able to receive as a child, and something that even in the school system we're not able to do. I was able to tailor learning to my each individual child's needs. Like, what I don't like about the school system is that everything is based on test scores. And if you're not meeting the test score, that means that the teacher is failing the students. And I realized that, one, we're not test takers. Two, testing is very stressful. So no matter how good of a test taker you are, sometimes today you might not meet the mark. And that doesn't mean that you don't know anything, that you're inadequate, or that you're less than. That just means that today you weren't mentally prepared for this. But the school system doesn't grade students on that. But when a child is acting out, or when a child is seeking attention, that's what they acknowledge as a bad thing. But it taught me to, working with all of these students and these parents, and working with the school system, has taught me to definitely listen to the person's actions. And I know that sounds crazy, because Symphony, how you listen to somebody's actions? Like, what are the things that people are crying out for without words? Like, nonverbal communication is really big, but we don't pay attention to it, because we're supposed to pay attention to what the person is saying. And I'm not saying not to pay attention to what a person is saying, because you definitely need to listen to what they're saying. But what I'm saying is, when somebody is angry, it's not always the anger. Like, it's not always you. It's not always the situation. Sometimes it's something deeper. But we have to be patient with ourselves and with other people in order to learn and to understand that, so that we can grow and communicate better. But all of this stuff has taught me that we have to understand that everybody starts somewhere. We all have a ground zero. Some people aren't ready to start at their ground zero because they haven't acknowledged that they have things that they need to heal from, or they haven't acknowledged that they are angry, or that they are hurt. But then there are some people that are ready to acknowledge those things and pay attention to themselves and step up for them and say, I love me and I'm willing to do whatever it takes, whatever I need to do so that I can be the best version of me. And that's all this self-care movement is about. Like, how can I show up for me? How can I love myself better? How can I heal? How can I learn to grow? How can I love better? How can I love myself better so that I can show up and love others better? And I think that's the beauty in me being married to my husband, because he teaches me all of those things. He teaches me that love is definitely patient. Love means to sit and listen and understand yourself, and then going back to your partner, your friend, your family member, and saying, hey, this is who I am. This is all of me. And you presenting it to them. And the other half of that is them, after doing the work on themselves, for themselves, understanding and accepting that this is where you are on your journey and this is what you need. And they should be able to do the same in return. That's all this self-care journey is. Getting back to yourself, loving yourself, teaching others how to love themselves so that they can love you better, so that we can love our community better, so that we can love the world better. Like, that's the big picture. How can we grow and heal together, collectively and individually, so that we can heal the world?